What's up everybody, Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week. And the first news story is that Toyota announced late last week that the Supra will be offered with a manual transmission here for the coming model year. And they say we'll have more info in a few weeks. And in the meantime though, they revealed it will be an all new tailor-made manual transmission, which is kind of surprising considering, you know, everyone was expecting it to just use the BMW manual that this motor is already designed to work with. So, you know, I don't know how far they're taking that tailor-made thing, whether it truly is a Toyota engineered transmission or if it's their tweaks on the BMW transmission. We'll have to wait and see. They also revealed that the manual models will have a red Supra badge on the back. So that's a cool little touch. And so yeah, we'll have to wait and see if the transmission will be available in both engines or only in one or the other. So that's the only other real mystery, you know, and so no matter what though, it's great news. Any more manuals that get brought into the world, you know, is a great thing. So I'm not going to complain no matter what they do with it. Just happy there's a manual coming. One other little bit of Toyota news that I know a lot of people were a little bit upset by this week was that it was revealed the production numbers for the GR Corolla. And so if you hadn't heard, they announced they're going to be doing 5,100 cores and 1,500 circuits, you know, for this model year. Circuit year, or the circuit's 1 year only, although there will probably be something similar to the circuit coming in the following years, but, you know, the core models will continue to be built after the 2023 model year. But regardless, you know, it's a small amount, which I know the first thing everyone's going to say is dealer markups are going to be crazy. They were going to be crazy no matter what. But unfortunately, the little bit of a bummer is that Toyota did say that they were aiming to build one less than demand was asking for, essentially. So, you know, kind of just making it, they just want to make sure there is more demand than supply, which I think, you know, they could have that situation no matter what. They could have built 50,000 of these things, and I think they would have still had more demand than supply, just because of the supply constraints going on right now. I mean, there's more demand than supply for RAV4s still currently. So I don't think you have to, you know, manufacture or engineer this kind of demand for, one, this car being as awesome as it is, and two, just because of the way everything's going right now, you know, there's more demand than supply for everything. So, you know, I mean, I think I'm going to let them off the hook here because it still is a hand-built model. They're hand-building these with the artisans or whatever that have built some of the, you know, very special models for Toyota and Lexus in the past. So, you know, it's a hand-built thing. If this were on a regular production line like the GR 86 and stuff like that, I could see, you know, there being a little bit more of a room to complain, I guess. But I don't find much room to complain, especially considering they're only building roughly that amount of 86s and BRZs as well. They're not building a ton of those either, and that is on a regular production line. So the fact that hand-built models like the GR Corolla are being built almost as many numbers as stuff on a regular production line, I think is actually pretty impressive. And also, we can't complain too much because of those 6,600 that are coming, by the way, that's for North America, there's going to be 2,000 left for the rest of the world. So that means, you know, Japan, the home market, is getting way less of these than even we are. And so, you know, it's another one of those things where we can't really complain because we're getting way more than everyone else. And so, you know, I'm just grateful we're getting as many as we are, honestly. And so, just awesome still that's, you know, coming. And, you know, the good news here is it's not a 1 year only thing. So, you know, yes, if it's impossible to get one here in the next year or two, you know, if you have patience, you can get one of these at MSRP eventually. You're just not going to be one of the first people on your block with one. But if you really want to pay whatever MSRP is going to be for these, have some patience, wait a couple of years. It'll still be here. You can still buy one and it'll still be just as awesome. So, you know, try and take a little solace and perspective with that, you know, for anyone who is annoyed about, you know, not being able to get one super easily. So anyway, but interesting to hear that as well. Lexus this week has also revealed the 2023 RZ450e, and this is their version of the BZ4X platform. And the RZ, you see here, is longer, lower, and wider. And to give an idea of its size, it's about 10 inches longer than an RX, but also 3 inches lower. And so interestingly, the width is identical to an RX. So that gives you a good perspective as far as the sizing of it. Inside, it gets a totally unique interior, and thankfully it's more traditional than the Toyota and the Subaru, having gauges in the traditional location and the same 14-inch screen that debuted in the NX. It also has a more traditional steering wheel design than the BZ4X, although a yoke-style steering control with steer-by-wire tech will be available later in the production run. One other unusual feature is that it is available with the same radiant heaters as the BZ4X, which provides a more energy-efficient way to warm the cabin. cabin. Mechanically, it runs the 201 horsepower front motor from the front-wheel drive versions of the BZ4X, but then adds a 107 horsepower rear motor from the all-wheel drive BZ4X for a total of 308 horsepower. Although it'll clearly be pretty front biased with its power delivery, considering there's double the power up front there, which could hold back the RZ from feeling too sporty, but Lexus is claiming its Direct 4 feature will help it to feel sporty still, saying, depending on the case, the RZ could be purely rear-wheel drive, and they say between 50% and 80% of the power output will come from the back when exiting a corner, for example. There was a 400 horsepower version that was teased a while back, but maybe that will be coming later, because as of right now, all we have is the 300 horsepower version. Also, interestingly, it runs the slightly smaller battery from the front-wheel drive BZ4X, which is a 71.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And so the likely upside that I'm guessing for this is the reason why they're doing it is because it has faster 150 kilowatt charging with that battery pack versus 100 kilowatts charging of the slightly bigger battery in the all-wheel drive BZ4X. I mean, it's only off by like 1 kilowatt hour, so it's not really a big difference as far as range, most likely anyway. And so Lexus is estimating range at 225 miles with 18-inch wheels, and that's most likely for the base trim. If the BZ4X is an indicator, with that having range ratings about 20 miles lower for the bigger wheels and the loaded up version, and all-wheel drive as well. So that means you're probably looking at close to about 200 miles of range for a loaded model with bigger wheels. Might be a little bit higher than that, but it's not going to be a ton of range. That's really the thing here. I think the takeaway with this Lexus is, for someone who wants a Lexus electric vehicle, you'll have it, and it'll probably have decent charging rates with 150 watt charging, but not having much more than 200 miles of range is going to be a little bit of a bummer. But anyway, we'll see how they price it and how that, might turn out to make it a bargain if you're willing to live with a lower range. But yeah, no pricing has been revealed yet, but it'll be arriving at dealers around the end of this year. Ferrari has also revealed the convertible version of the 296 this week, called the 296 GTS. And so, like past convertible Ferraris, it's a power-folding hardtop, but unlike other convertible Ferraris in recent history at least, the engine is still visible, thankfully, which is awesome that you can still see it. The top can go down in 14 seconds. It speeds up to 28 miles per hour, and the engine bay has been redesigned to maintain cooling while making room for the convertible top and the resonators on the exhaust system, which were also changed to sound better. Interestingly, another change is that it gets unique seats and unique trim behind the headrest to reduce turbulence in the cabin. So they came up with a new way to kind of redirect the air so you don't get that constant, whipping around of air whenever you're driving around with the top down. So that's cool. The structure's also been reinforced to maintain as much of the coupe's rigidity as possible, but the trade-off is that along with the folding roof components, all that is added up to add 161 pounds to the car. That's not ideal, but it doesn't seem like it makes much of an impact on performance because it uses the same twin turbo V6 and hybrid setup for 818 horsepower, and still does the same 2.9 seconds 0 to 60 as the coupe too, so it's not even any slower as far as the Sprint goes. It can also do 15 miles of electric driving still, and it'll be entering production here in a few months, but no pricing has been revealed for those yet either. BMW this week has revealed the 2023 7 Series and the i7. So as you can see, they mimic the X7 that just debuted last week with the split headlight design and the huge grille. And let me know what you think about the design in the comments, but to me it doesn't strike me as a particularly good looking car. The back end especially looks kind of generic, but it's a lot more impressive on the inside, as you can see, with a cool blend of glass, wood, and technology, but especially that like light up glass on the dashboard there is really sweet. The gauges are 12.3 inches and the infotainment screen is a 14.9 inch screen, both fused together by a piece of curved glass. In the back there's a 31.3 inch 8K touchscreen display and a panoramic roof that can do an LED light show. There's also smartphone sized touchscreens in the doors to control various car functions. And the back seat is more spacious than before as well. Also, you can now get a 36 speaker Bowers & Wilkins Diamond surround sound system and basically every other luxury feature you can think of in this thing. So, I mean, they really pulled out all the stops with the interior of this thing. Powertrain-wise, the lineup starts with the 740i, which runs the 3-liter twin-turbo inline-6 combined with a 48-volt mild hybrid setup that does 375 horsepower and 383 pound-feet of torque, along with a 5-second 0 to 60 time, which is still plenty quick. Should be more than enough for everyone. The power runs through a new 8-speed automatic that they say is smoother and quicker to react. I didn't see whether it's a ZF 8-speed still or if this is something in-house by BMW or what, but interesting to get that little tidbit. And then there's a top performing version, which is the 760i, which runs the 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 still for 536 horsepower and 553 pound-feet of torque, along with a 4.2 second 0 to 60. But interestingly, that's just called the 760i. It's not an M760i like it used to be. So there sounds like there is no M badged gas version of the 7 Series here. The electric version is called the i7 xDrive 60, and it's almost as fast as that twin turbo V8, doing the same 536 horsepower and 549 pound-feet of torque, which is only 4 pound-feet of torque less than the gas model. And the 0 to 60 for this one is 4.5 seconds. BMW also says it'll have an EPA range of 300 miles, thanks to a big 101.7 kilowatt hour battery. It'll recharge pretty quickly too, maxing out at 195 kilowatt charging to provide 80 miles of range in just 10 minutes. To further entice 7 Series shoppers to the electric one, BMW is also offering 3 years of free charging on the Electrify America network if your session is 30 minutes or less, which doesn't sound like it'll need to be longer than that anyway with how fast this recharges. Another thing that may entice 7 Series shoppers is, at least to the i7 here, is again the desire for an M version, because it sounds like they're announcing officially that the M70i version will be coming eventually, but it's only for the electric version here. BMW claims it'll be the most powerful road car it's ever made, with well over 600 horsepower, along with 737 pound-feet of torque, plus a 0 to 60 time under 4 seconds. So if you want both electric range and gas power, there's also a plug-in hybrid version that will be coming eventually, but I think it's first coming to Europe, and then we'll get that one a little bit slower here in the States. But all 7 Series should also handle and ride better thanks to wider wheels, tires, and wider tracks, both front and rear as well, along with greater rigidity and a bunch of other small improvements. They all come standard with an air suspension, adaptive dampers, but the 760i has an option for active roll stabilization that enables better handling and a smoother ride at the same time. You can also get rear wheel steering, although it isn't as advanced as the setup in the new Mercedes S-Class, so it doesn't turn quite as much as the S-Class, but still nice you can get rear wheel steering in these. And all the driver assistance tech, of course, is top-notch here in the new 7 Series as well. And this year, they've added a highway assistant as an option that enables hands-free driving at speeds up to 80 miles per hour on, the highways in certain conditions. It thankfully uses a driver monitoring system, though, to make sure the driver is still paying attention while doing that hands-free driving. So that's definitely appreciated. And so the 2023 7 Series will be arriving in the fourth quarter of this year, with prices starting at $94,295 for the 740i, $114,595 for the 760i, and $120,295 for that i7. Mercedes has revealed the EQS SUV this week, and so it's on the same platform as the EQS sedan and has a lot of the same components and even the same 126.4-inch wheelbase as the sedan. The SUV is 7.8 inches higher, though, and as you can see, styling is very similar as well, with many of the sedan styling traits just being stretched upward a bit. One interesting touch, though, is that the running boards you see here are standard, and that's because they actually improve the aerodynamics, which I've never heard said before about running boards, so that's interesting. Inside, it's also very similar to the sedan, with the hyperscreen setup being an option, plus the availability of a third row to seat 7 people total. And for some odd reason, though, the SUV is 5.2 inches shorter than the sedan, meaning if you have the third row up, you have a measly 7 cubic feet of cargo space there in the hatch area. So, don't expect this SUV to be as spacious as a GLS, which is kind of strange. They said this model was designed specifically for the US, so I'm so confused as to why they made this thing so small. It just seems counterintuitive. Like, at least keep the same length as the sedan. Why they made it shorter than the sedan really kind of boggles my mind, especially, again, for the American market, where they could have made this thing, the size of a Hummer limo and people wouldn't have complained, so I don't get that. But anyway, it also doesn't leave much room for the coming EQE SUV, which they did confirm is coming, and there's an EQC SUV that's going to be coming at some point as well here for the United States. We already have the EQC other places in the world, but we will be getting one of those as well, and we currently are having the EQB arriving this year. So how they're fitting 2 other SUVs in between the EQB and this fairly small EQS is kind of crazy. I feel like there's going to be a lot of overlap. It'll be like, oh, well, the other one is 1 inch longer. It's like, well, what's the point of even having different models, you know? I mean, it's just kind of strange. Anyway, the interior is very nice in typical Mercedes fashion and fits this car's likely price tag of over $100,000. 2 versions are going to be available with the same setups as the sedan, meaning there's a 450 plus trim that's rear-wheel drive and does 355 horsepower and 419 pound-feet of torque. And then there's an EQS 580 version with all-wheel drive and a total of 536 horsepower and 633 pound-feet of torque. And I'm sure, of course, there'll be an AMG version coming as well, since that, you know, is something that's offered on the sedan. And anyway, these run a battery with 107.8 kilowatt hours of usable energy. So a massive battery pack. And Mercedes claims it can do 373 miles of range on the easier European WLTP test. But that means range should be easily over 300 miles still, even with the EPA's lower range ratings. It can also do a 200 kilowatt charging and gets 2 years of free charging at Electrify America stations. And there's no pricing yet for these, but they'll be starting production this summer in Alabama in a completely CO2 neutral way, Mercedes notes, and it'll be arriving at dealers this fall. So cool to see that. Audi has a different take on a people mover, at least for a potential one in the future here, showing off the UrbanSphere concept. So it's about 10 inches longer than a long wheelbase A8, so at least Audi got the sizing right, to provide a lounge-style interior that seats only 4, but it's easy to imagine that, you know, that would be scrapped for a normal 3-row setup if something like this were ever to get approved for production. And because this concept theoretically could be level 4 autonomous, it has things like swiveling seats and a retracting steering wheel. There's other cool touches that could be more accurately previewing a production Audi, like the light-up grille that Audi calls a light canvas that can indicate when the car is accelerating, turning, or even when it needs to provide a warning message. The taillights in the back also can change a bunch and look super awesome. It's also on the new PPE platform that Audi and Porsche are working on together. And in this application, it has a 120 kilowatt hour battery, 395 horsepower and 509 pound-feet of torque, and has an 800 volt electrical system capable of recharging in 186 miles of range in just 10 minutes. So that is very, very fast and impressive if that's the case. And it's going to have a total range, they say, of roughly 466 miles. And it all sounds very promising, but again, this is just a concept, so we'll wait and see what parts of this actually do make it to production and if they can actually deliver on those, specs. And but still an interesting kind of idea, kind of a little bit more outside the box than what we've seen in the past from Audi. And on the Volkswagen side, their engineers are working to make some improvements to the MEB electric platform that they have currently. And Inside EVs is reporting that during the UBS Electric Car Day event, Volkswagen presented some goals to improve range to up to 435 miles for an updated MEB platform, along with increasing charging speeds from 150 kilowatts to 200 kilowatts, and they want to lower the 0 to 60 times by about a half a second as well. They didn't provide any specifics, though, on how they plan to do this or make these improvements, but it's assumed that they'll probably either increase the battery size or improve the battery chemistry, along with installing better motors, things like that, to get those improvements. But, I don't think these are things you're going to see as some kind of update. It'll be, an actual hardware upgrade that will happen, for later model years. And the goal is to have these improvements in production cars by 2026, although it sounds like they could potentially come even sooner than that. So interesting to hear that. Ram is also working hard on improving the coming EV platform that they're using for their electric vehicles, especially the electric Ram 1500. So Automotive News here claims the concept version of that electric Ram 1500 will be arriving before the end of this year, but since the production truck won't be arriving until 2024, the CEO of Stellantis said that they're adjusting the specs and adjusting the performance in function of what we see coming from our competitors. We will push past our competitors in terms of those important metrics like towing and hauling, and in the future, charge times, range, and things of this nature to have the best battery electric vehicle to come to market. So one example of this could be some pretty impressive battery chemistry, with Ram claiming it'll be able to recharge at a rate of 20 miles per minute. And if they were actually able to do that, that would be double what the Hummer EV can do with its 800 volt architecture. So that would be very fast recharging, and we'll see, if that does, turn out to be something they can deliver on. This whole thing sounds very promising. We'll see what actually, arrives in 2024, but very cool to hear that. And Lincoln has revealed the Star concept this week, which Lincoln says previews the styling direction they're planning for 4 new electric vehicles that'll be arriving by 2026. And it sounds like one of those could actually be a sedan, with Lincoln's chief designer telling Autoblog that China's demand for sedans is keeping them in the sedan market, and implied that if American consumers were interested in it, it's possible we could get this in the States. It just depends on I guess buying trends for the market for the next few years, as far as whether we'll actually get it here or not. But fingers crossed we get an electric Continental. That would be really cool, especially if they make it, grander and, larger than the past version, so that it could actually be used for fleet services, things like that. Anyway, back to this concept though. While it looks very futuristic, it's not too hard to imagine that a toned down version of this could become an electric aviator, but the styling could also be applied to something Mach-E sized as well, since it seems to make sense for Lincoln to potentially use that platform as well. But this concept has a lot of far out and creative ideas, but there's also some that could make it to production. Like, it has a curved clamshell style rear hatch that creates what Lincoln calls a love seat. There's also cool ambient lighting that works with ambient sounds and aroma diffusers to create rejuvenation moods, and a dash mounted screen that runs almost the full width of the interior that will also play some soothing sounds and images and things like that. Some other cool touches that likely won't make it to production are swiveling seats and the frunk area, which both slides out at the bottom and raises up the hood. And that hood is also electrochromic glass, to either conceal what's inside or to show it off at the flip of a switch. But I'm not sure who wants to show off their luggage. Even if you do have Louis Vuitton luggage or something fancy that would be worth flaunting, do you want to advertise that you have that under the glass hood there that probably is very easy to smash? So I'm not sure why anyone would ever want to show off what's in their luggage compartment, but I guess it's kind of a cool toy. I don't know. So I wouldn't bet on that making it to production. But anyway, it's a cool concept though, nonetheless. Really beautiful styling in my opinion. So hopefully the production Lincoln EVs look almost as cool as this does whenever they arrive. Autocar this week did an interview with the executives from Lotus, who talked a little bit about the next Lotus coming after the Electra. And so this new one is going to be codenamed the Type 133, and they're describing it as a 4-door coupe that will compete with the Porsche Taycan and be a driver's car, having features like rear-wheel steering and an air suspension. It'll likely share some mechanical bits with the Electra, probably most of the mechanical bits, meaning it should have around 600 horsepower or so. And as far as styling, their senior vice president of design told Autocar that it'll be sharing some cues with the Electra, but said that it won't just be the same styling, copy and pasted onto a sedan, with his quote being, "There has to be some continuity and family identity," but he added that families aren't made up entirely of triplets or quadruplets. Every member of a family can have their own character. And I wish that other designers from other companies got this same idea, because it seems like it is like quadruplets, whatever you're talking about, especially like the Germans and stuff with, the Mercedes and the Audis and the BMWs all being very similar with their styling for the most part, especially on the sedans and SUVs. But so yeah, kind of cool to hear that. And so it's going to be revealed supposedly next year. So cool to see that. In some other sports sedan news, Autoblog talked to Alfa Romeo at the New York Auto Show about what they're planning to do with the Giulia and the Stelvio for their final years of being gas powered before the EV switchover, which is going to be bringing us a new electric Giulia around 2024. So Alfa's senior vice president told Autoblog that they'll have a couple new special editions. The Estrema is the first one that they already announced that's going to be starting production here in May. And that adds a rear limited slip diff and an active suspension along with unique trim onto a regular Giulia. And he revealed that there will also be a Lusso edition and a Competizione edition of the Giulia and the Stelvio coming, and that the Competizione would get some parts from the Quadrifoglio, although he didn't say which parts, but he said it wouldn't get any more power. There won't be any kind of middle model. That ship has already sailed and they just weren't able to make it happen for whatever reason. But he says the Quadrifoglio has higher demand now than it ever has before, and that Alfa is actually increasing production of the Quadrifoglio for the 2023 model year to meet demand, which is fantastic news. I didn't realize any Alfa Romeo was a hot seller currently. So I'm actually very happy to hear that a ton of people are still into the quadrifolios. They seem fantastic. Unfortunately, I've never driven the quadrifolio version of the Giulia. I did review the quadrifolio Stelvio, and it was fantastic. So I totally, understand the hype, but it seemed like there weren't a lot of buyers, but apparently there are. So that's great to hear. And so otherwise, though, he did say that for the 2024 model year, they'll have another light refresh for the Stelvio and the Giulia, suggesting it will be sold alongside those new electric versions that are supposed to be arriving again in 2024. So, I think this is a strategy a lot of companies are planning. Porsche's doing it with the new Macan that's going to be electric only. They're going to have a gas version, like an updated version of the old car, sold alongside for a little bit for those who aren't ready to make the switch. And so, it certainly makes sense to do that. And so cool to hear there's going to be a little improvement. They say it'll be mostly just, exterior and interior stuff for that little refresh again. But great to hear that too. Land Rover this week has revealed the HST trim for the 2023 Range Rover Velar, which is now the top trim since the V8 powered SV Autobiography Dynamic was gone last year after its 1-year limited run. So this HST builds upon the R-Dynamic S trim and bumps the 3-liter inline 6 that's both turbocharged and supercharged from 335 horsepower to 395 horsepower now. So nice big jump of 60 horsepower there, along with bumping torque from 354 pound-feet to 405 pound-feet. It drops the 0 to 60 time to 5.2 seconds. It was previously 6 seconds before. So a nice improvement there too. It doesn't appear to have any other performance enhancements aside from including the optional adaptive suspension as standard. But that's basically it. But it does bump the wheels from 19s to 21s as well, and gives you a darker look with a black trim and stuff too. And so it's on sale now with prices starting at $80,350, including destination. And Chevy gave us some surprising and slightly confusing news this week. First confirming the rumor that the Trax is ending production by the end of this year, but followed up by saying that a second generation Trax is still going to be debuting around that same time as well and will be a 2023 model year vehicle. And so that's kind of strange because, myself and many others were just assuming the Trailblazer would take over as the new entry-level Chevy, crossover because it's really tiny. I reviewed one a couple years back. It's definitely entry-level sized. And so, but apparently Chevy doesn't think it's an entry-level material for the Trailblazer, saying Chevy does not plan to abandon the important entry-level small SUV segment. And I would argue they wouldn't be if they offered the Trailblazer still, but apparently, I don't know why they don't think the Trailblazer is entry level, but regardless, they're somehow going to have something Trailblazer size, which is very small, and then still have a next generation Trax, which even if it's the same exact size as the current Trax, still makes it maybe an inch or so shorter than a Trailblazer. They're very close in size. So, seems like a lot of overlap. I'm not sure, why they're having that much overlap. There's no comment from Buick as far as what they're doing. It's assumed that the Encore will also be going away and either not being replaced or that will actually have the Encore GX be its entry-level model. I don't know what they're doing on that side, but just kind of strange to have two tiny subcompact SUVs like that. And but anyway, we'll see what they end up doing with that. So as for the last news story this week, Reuters is reporting that Toyota is planning to make an SUV version of their top-of-the-line Crown sedan that we've never gotten here in the States. Well, I guess we did, but it was way back in the 50s. But anyway, this SUV version of the Crown that they're developing supposedly would be sold in North America and in China, in addition to Japan. And so 3 different people gave Reuters this information, supposedly, and they added that it'll be offered in a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, and a fully electric version even. And they claim that the hybrid will be arriving first in the summer of 2023 and will be sold here. But the plug-in hybrid supposedly will be kept only for Japan for some reason. And that the export plans for the EV version are undecided as of right now. So if this is all true, it'll be interesting to see how they position it without stepping on toes at Lexus. Previously, obviously, they had very expensive SUVs like the Land Cruiser, which were very close in price to the, Lexus. So, it's totally possible. But, I always just assumed they were getting rid of the Land Cruiser here in the States because it made sense for everyone to just spend a couple grand more for the Lexus anyway. And, the Lexus always sold better than the Land Cruiser here. So, I'm not sure I guess they could, you know, just put this Crown SUV in to take the spot that the Land Cruiser previously occupied if they're planning on it being super low volume and stuff. Obviously, the Crown will probably be more comfortable and not be off-road based like the Land Cruiser and the LX are, but just kind of an interesting thing. I mean, I get why they're making the Crown an SUV, and if there's demand in Japan, I can see that, but interesting they're going to try and sell it here in the States. We'll see how it does, but I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be, you know, bigger than a Sequoia, or at least more luxurious than a Sequoia, and the new Sequoia, you know, is a nice improvement with the new Tundra interior and stuff, so we'll see what they end up doing with that, but very interesting to hear that report. And then the last little thing is I want to give a huge thank you to the new members that joined this week, and a huge thank you also to all the members here that are in the Matt Moran Motoring Club that have joined here. And so huge thanks this week to JT, Yanel Abuzade at TX Boss 23, and Marco Mendez for all joining, and welcome to the club. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the perks so far, and there'll be, you know, more stuff posted here, of course, in the future. And I'm also, you know, hoping to do a live stream here relatively soon, because that's one of the other perks of being a member is you do get priority response in the live streams, and so that's something I'm hoping to do, a live stream. Just the way things have been working out with the timing of my trips and this upload schedule and stuff, I haven't been able to find a slot for a live stream currently, but I'm going to do one hopefully here sometime in the next several weeks. We'll see, but I've missed it. I know I've missed a couple of them, so I'm missing doing the live streams. They've been a lot of fun in the past, so I'm hoping to get back to doing one of those here relatively soon. But anyway, huge thanks to all of you once again for your support, and if you are interested in joining the club and getting access to those perks, there's going to be a link in the description. You can also click, there's a join button here on the video page if you're on a computer, or on the channel page as well. But anyway, that's it for all the news this week, guys. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.